So I don't think anybody expected the Denver Broncos to be in this spot, not after what we saw over a year ago, not after they got embarrassed by Miami, not after they cut ties with Russell Wilson and had to eat one of the largest dead cap hits in NFL history, and definitely not after entering the offseason with a bare quarterback room, no second round pick, and barely any money to spend. But here we are 1 year later. The Broncos didn't just turn things around, they flipped the entire script on what we thought was possible for a team in full-on rebuild mode. And not only did they win 10 games and make the playoffs for the first time since the Peyton Manning era, but now, heading into 2025, they might actually be built to make a real run in the AFC. Now, obviously, to appreciate just how far this team has come, we gotta rewind, because it wasn't that long ago when the Broncos were an absolute mess. Let's be real, this team was a walking disaster, a walking dumpster fire at that. They give up 70 points to the Dolphins. They were one of the laughingstocks of the league, and even though they brought in Sean Payton, it was starting to look like maybe he had made the wrong call taking this job, because at that point Russell Wilson's contract was a ticking time bomb. They had no flexibility, no identity, and to make it worse, they were down draft capital because of previous trades they made. I mean, this thing just looked plain right awful. But credit to them, they didn't panic, they didn't go chasing big names or overpaying in free agency, they just went back to the basics. They built from the trenches, they stayed patient, and everything changed the second they locked in on their quarterback. So let's talk about Bo Nix, because while everybody else was chasing the flashy names, Caleb Drake, JJ Jaden, which there's nothing wrong with those guys, they're great players, the Broncos just quietly sat back and waited for the guy they actually wanted all along. And I know that sounds like a spin, but this wasn't some fallback plan. Sean Payton had been locked in on Bo Nix since before the draft process even started. He went to the pro day, ran the private workout, and had him throwing 80 balls the next day. This wasn't a guess, this was a calculated move by a coach who knows exactly what kind of quarterback fits his system, and Nix, he was the perfect fit. The 5 years of college experience, the nation-leading 45 passing touchdowns, the calmness under pressure, the mobility, the accuracy. He wasn't the guy with the biggest arm or the flashiest skill set, but he played with maturity and feel, and from the moment he stepped into the building, he carried himself like a starter, and that confidence showed. Even after a rocky start to the season, it became clear pretty quickly that Bo Nix wasn't just here to develop, he was here to win. Now look, I won't sugarcoat it, the first couple of games were rough. The Broncos dropped their first 2 games to the Seahawks and Steelers, and the offense looked like it was still figuring itself out. There was turnovers, missed throws, the run game was non-existent. It was clear Nix was still adjusting, but then came week 3 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and everything changed. That was the moment this team found its identity. The O-line started clicking, the run game finally showed signs of life, and Nix began using his legs to open up the field. You could feel the momentum shift. And defensively, that unit came alive. Patrick Surtain had one of the most dominant performances you'll ever see from a corner. He wasn't targeted a single time. The pass rush made life miserable for Baker Mayfield, racking up 7 sacks and 6 more hurries, and Tampa Bay only scored 1 touchdown all game. That performance set the tone for the rest of the season, and honestly, it was that defense that carried Denver through most of the year. Because while Bo Nix continued to grow, ending the year with nearly 3,800 passing yards, 29 touchdowns, and 4 rushing TDs, it was the defense that really made this team scary. They gave up just 18.3 points per game, which was 3rd best in the league. They were top 3 in stopping the run, and they led the entire NFL with 63 sacks, and what made them so dangerous wasn't just the front 7, it was the secondary. That group flat out took away the middle of the field. You couldn't run on them, you couldn't throw deep on them, and unless you had a top tier QB, your offense was going to struggle for 4 quarters. The Broncos ended up going 10-7 and making the playoffs for the first time since Super Bowl 50, and even though they lost to the Bills in the wildcard round, that wasn't some fluky, happy to be here appearance. They actually punched first, they forced early stops, they were right there until Buffalo pulled away late, and the vibe after that game wasn't disappointment, it was belief. This team had built something real, and heading into 2025, they're just getting started. So what did they do this offseason? Pretty much everything right, at least in my opinion. They had a full slate of draft picks for the first time in a while, and they used them wisely. But first, they crushed free agency. They brought in Talanoa Hufanga to pair at safety with Brandon Jones, added Dre Greenlaw to help bolster the linebacking core, and brought in Evan Ingram as a reliable weapon over the middle, all smart, system-friendly moves that made them faster, tougher, and a bit deeper as well. And then came the draft, and in the first round, they landed Jahdae Barron, a corner from Texas, who's kind of a household name at this point, and many people had him as a top 15 player. He now will most likely line up opposite of Patrick Surtain, who just signed a 4-year, $96 million extension, which was well deserved. Congrats to him for that. That duo might be the best cornerback tandem in football if they can click from the jump. They also grabbed Savion Jones from LSU, a pass rusher who adds depth behind Zach Allen, and they added Pat Bryant as another option in the receiver room. But the steal of the draft to me was RJ Harvey from UCF. This dude ran a 4.4, he's slippery in space, he breaks tackles, and he fits perfectly in that Sean Payton screen game, at least in my eyes. He might not be a full 3-down back, especially right away yet, but paired with SD McLaughlin and Batty, the Broncos might finally have a ground game to lean on, which is something that Bo Nix absolutely needs to create a more balanced offense around him that can keep opposing secondaries on their heels, because last year, most secondaries knew 75% of the time that he was going to be airing it out, and that just made life so easy on them, and Bo Nix still somehow found a way to have success. And now that Bo Nix has had a full offseason to work as the unquestioned starter, watch out, because everything about his developmental trajectory points to a second-year leap. From weeks 1 to 7 last year, his PFF grade was around 60, but from that point on, it jumped to nearly 74. He got more comfortable pushing the ball down the field, throwing over the middle, and playing with tempo, and more importantly, he earned Sean Payton's trust, enough to open up the playbook. That's when you know a quarterback is growing. But as exciting as the offense is, the real strength of this team is still the defense. Vance Joseph went from being on the hot seat early last season to building one of the best units in football, and now it might be even better. They returned 3 of PFF's top 50 defenders in Surtain, Jones, and Bonito. They added high upside players like Hufanga and Greenlaw. They stop the run, they generate pressure without blitzing, and they force turnovers. And that secondary, it's built to ruin your game plan. When they go to nickel and line up Surtain, Hufanga, Brandon Jones, Riley Moss, and Barron, good luck. That's a group that can play man, zone, press, off. They can cover tight ends, cover slot guys, blitz off the edge, you name it. And when the coverage is that good, it lets the front 6 go hunting. If you don't have an elite O-line and quarterback, you're not scoring touchdowns, you're kicking field goals, and even those won't come easy. Anyways though, now when you look ahead to 2025, the Broncos' schedule isn't easy, but it is manageable. They'll have tough games on the road at Philly, Houston, and Washington. Those will be big tests, but they also get home games early in the year against Tennessee, the Jets, the Giants, and the Cowboys, and that gives them a real shot to start hot and build momentum, which is just huge in this league. It's all about momentum. That's basically what the sport is. And if they can split their divisional games, maybe even steal one from the Chiefs, who they almost beat last year, then yeah, this could easily be another 10 or 11 win team, and hopefully they can do some damage in the playoffs. That's what their goal is, and that's what they care about, especially the fan base. And what really is the scary part is that this team doesn't depend on a single star to carry them. They don't need a top 3 receiver or an MVP caliber running back. They win because they play the cleanest football. They're now balanced, they're physical, they've got depth, and they're also well coached, and that's a formula that travels. That's a formula that wins in December. And if Bo Nix keeps trending up, there's no reason this team can't be playing in January again, maybe even February. Now, I'm not saying they're Super Bowl contenders, but the ceiling is there. If Nix takes that next step, if the run game comes together, and if they stay healthy on defense, this is a team that can beat anyone. They can slow down the Chiefs, they match up well against the Chargers, and against any other AFC contenders at that, even like Baltimore and Houston. I really do believe in this Broncos team. I think they're going to make a major stride forward once again in 2025, but let me know what you guys think in the comments below. That's really all I got for this video. Thank you all so much if you made it to this point, and if you enjoyed and haven't yet, please be sure to drop a like and subscribe, because your support truly does mean the world. And also, let me know what you would like to see next, and until then, I will see you all later.